Thank you very much for coming. I think that often for readings, poets are eager to read new work. It's been exciting to hear the new work of my friends tonight, poets that I admire. I'm going to read from a manuscript that I just finished. It's called Post-Identity, and I'm going to read from a long poem that's called Bee Recorder. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's a 52-page poem. I love the long poem. But I do want to preface it, I think it's about like 17 minutes. I do want to preface it with maybe a contextualizing detail. The poem begins with a reference to Virginia. In 1891, there was a very famous editorial written called Yes, Virginia, There Is a Santa Claus, and it turned into this kind of cultural trope, and I think there were a couple of movies made out of it, and I just always had that in my head, and that was just like, yes, Virginia, I wanted to appropriate that. So I'm going to read this poem, which is... It's based on a couple of influences. One of them is spoken word poetry, which I think is derided by poets because racism. So I really wanted to access anaphora, the question, and a lot of different conventions of spoken word. So that's maybe something that you'll be hearing. Bee Recorder. Yes, Virginia. There is a monolith no one else sees, though it overshadows the animals in their boxes, stacked so corners of one stick into corners of others. For morale, the animals think about a next life or uprising, while the monolith tells them it created reality's Molotov cocktail with Cool Whip, instead of sharing the proverbial bounty. So you should worry over the future, Virginia, and let that take precedence over shadow. Since there's also the math dearth, the secret to being the 1/12th spot taken by a much more legitimate, therefore ephemeral and necessary revolution that we await, which is why our shoes pinch, made elsewhere in plastic versions of animal skin, layer of animal cells, and the microscopic fray of thread meant to stitch shoes, instead stitching the lungs, the fingers to stitches, the stitches to thousandths of cents, the kind of money to transform us all each day into new animals, new pelts. How I acquired this most ancient onus. Can you see onus and me breaking and me twisting into each other like vines? How do I break free of odium, Virginia, or explain it as my current millstone? And what of the slumbering beast on the other side of the door and his agenda for me, like fill this hole and shut up? And why the performance of competence that feels like gauntlet because the scheme wasn't visible, the one from which my hand was molded by my betters? Stop thinking in the past, they say. It's like despoiling the giant progressive tapestry of us, says their censorious voiceover, and that really brings us all down. Emphasis theirs. You should know about these matters. That's what they say, Virginia. They have a straight face when they say it. In the legion of animals, the serpent is the queen and the elephant the serf. The microbe is the god and the human animal is that god's prey. The factory is apex maw, the grid its enforcer. Father is both axle and rude, mother as dollar bills, the molten core of the real. The animal imagines what life is in her fiefdom, what the edges of her domain are, what parables become policy. Vice versa, the animal susses out confederate from the horde. The animal defines the age's pathology. How will the animal cure it? How does the animal describe, worry, and recognize it? How does the animal solve the animal outside of time? Does invulnerability become the animal or serve the fiefdom? What is the give and the takeaway? Is it enumerative, magnitude, inescapable class, fortress? We all did grow up frozen at that slant. Are we up or down? Are we over and out? Can we clamber in from the wilds? What is your provenance? Where did you suffer? What is your affiliation? How are you acquainted with industry? What will you bring to our guild? What are the qualities of a good serf? What is your mission in life? And could you sell me this instance? What is the last pornography that engaged you? Can you talk about your research into the insolvable? How would you feign a diverse audience? Is a reader a client? Did customers occur to you as an outcome? What are 3 positive strains in you? Does discontent drive you into the market? Does blunder drive you to work on a regular basis? When can you start with selective memory? Is that the racket you had planned? Was this a natal force? Are you an open boomtown or a crafted urn? What animal rules the roost? Does that animal work as aphorism, pure revelation, or dispatch from the front lines? Where is the monolith's fortress and benefactor? Have you made anything good with your outrage or built an endless war? Is it merely an illusion, all-purpose effort against absolutes? Will an underclass's hunger qualify for your attention, or will you have to track down their legitimacy yourself? Can I guarantee a chronicle of the moment, or is it fraught with the 70s, therefore fraught with the vulgar density of self? Is that the hitch aesthetically, thus ethically? Does it seem insurmountable, the desire for such validation, or could you break free and be recorder? I was light from the mouth, from every part of me. I was of the earth, or a scar in the earth rent through the ruins of late civilization, and foam rose from it and became a saint's reptilian spirit, and I could taste the wheat and coal and gold like a trinity of bounty, and I was vapor like a smog that becomes a wraith over the city, then back to its animal form, decompressed and atomized into its past life as a star, and I was that animal truth, the spirit I had dreamt about being more cloud and star than given. I was just edges, the density of water, a system of reciprocity in and out, the fade of loss, fugitive substance going south, and inside the disposition for supernaturalist decadence that disappear in the annals yet leaves a taste in the mouth, metallic and lime, the sense of erasure, disillusion, and I was speed and insistence to reset the orb center of gravity. I was risen from foam, necessitated by colony, sired in violence, exported as luxury. And am I the mariner, and whose bird was it, and how does absolution work, and why not float abroad, and did you ever pick up a hitchhiker, and what is the most lost you've ever been, the most Catholic? What do you call your hands? What do you call home? Where is your obligation? Do you allow animals? How many erased faces do we each have, and does art die and go to hell? Does subterfuge reveal itself at the end of the tunnel? And why would you believe this mouth? And was there history in all the book's allusions, and am I its audience, or the other way around? Am I actually the bird, the one who louses up the place? Am I a sign of the raptures to come? Am I a blur on the lens? Am I the false flag operation of crisis actors in a San Isidro preschool next to a strip club? Will I be reincarnated as an elephant, as king, as barnacle? Why am I really the locus of your discontent? Why am I not your president, your intimate, the landlord, aesthetic overlord? How do I hang from your neck? When will I be graced with immunity? Are my fingers comb? My eyes pools of quicksand? Are my breasts origin? Is my mouth portal? Is the freckle on my nose the dimmest grief? Is the left ear moment and the right one perpetuity? Is each fingertip war? Each wrinkle a row with a friend? Each vein a filament? The elbow crook a verdict? Are my taste buds tiny turrets? And are the drums in my ears awaiting your report? Is my body any currency worth trading? Do I hear the hue of my indignities? Am I a dome of resistance? Anything on me to suggest virtue, or are all the marks and scars just a reportage? I'd once have left Brown behind, having already left the tribe behind, and her tongue and the garb that made me theirs, because it felt like leaving hoi polloi behind. To put behind the chola in my mother's tongue, lingering in long and deep vowels, meant I could leave behind inferiority complex, not really, but in theory. I try to leave my Eden dreams behind, but they stick to my shoe. I leave behind dignity 5 minutes in because of my anarchic spirit, so the worm is behind me too, along with the poison pen. Never mind, I'll need that. I had long imagined anger as my primary breathing apparatus. What a mixed blessing when it finally worked. Once I broke into pieces, now I break into wholes, since I've learned the most from the cracked. Even the larks we go on, like the egress via the dour pilgrim's burlap sack that swung us into the heavens, then launched us into the river. There was such a taste of afterlife from the spell of fireworks on that enchanting Independence Day. When might my audience discover the true self covered in terminal fur? When will my audience draw and quarter my portrayal, banish me from their orgies? Why am I the funny sister, the bad one in limbo? Do you remember wanting the different world, the world you thought your children would want? Do you remember how good it felt to want the future because we were uncovering and in turn overturning? I remember thinking it would be another world, even better than the world made by the previous generation, sometimes so much better, I was sure I couldn't even imagine it, knowing it lived in the edges of my imagination and requiring only connecting to other edges to make the whole picture until someone would imagine it, dollar bills popping around them like a halo, and would sell it as a panacea, a distraction, then the tipping point when they turned our uncovering into another machine for printing money and we earned less than illusion. So I have to ask, are you a foot soldier for the children? Because they want us to speak at the top of the stairs, at the top of our voices. Without masks, they want us to topple. Remember wanting to topple? Remember believing to topple? The children would also like us to leave well enough alone. I think just shut the door, be quiet. You are not the only subject of this song. The children are saying, get ready. They are saying, clear the decks. They'll secret a riot in a dossier on the man's desk, get thrown into the dungeon with the other miscreants, where they'll scratch poems over another's poems into the walls. And some of the words will be profane, whispered through the walls, and will become prayer for all the others because the idealism is tonic, like rejecting the chill of the assembly line. Will we be mentioned in the chronicles? Not the us specific, but the general type. The terms of mention would have to be something like a national one without encumbrance of jingoism, a unique uppercase optional or intended for topical use only. I'm willing to draft some language to justify funding the initiative to inscribe our bodies. Just charge it to my race card. Does this new glitch accumulate volition and mass humanist hysteria, or can it be vaccinated against the dominion goal of one population in relation to many others, some system instead of fractures clouded by gunsmoke and dark forces deserving of the lead in their own water because of the 7 sins used as the shackles against the wrong caste? When is the mamacita of all ad hoc meetings on the subject of identity being held closed session by the elite? Who will send a memo, or should I fly to New York on my dime or on my articulate diction and ability to take direction? Will I have to march right on into the boardroom, and will it be a disturbance of the meritocracy? Then in the account, why will the depiction bear a resemblance to the verity of the anti-animal? Will mapping begin to cohere for the myopic when an encroachment triggers the red state-type sweating bullets? Because truthfully, we smear the map with pungency. You want to swab us, you can't, thus making it harder, more terrifying to efface. We coagulate and compound, virulent, fetid, a stream bisecting dreams, where those who weren't there, old phantoms. Phantoms in the pantry and from the pylon and hiding in the cricks of history, or Arnold's Phantom of Yourself, the West Side Story phantom and the phantom of pencils gone, the phantom of long-lost moods dense with speechlessness, the phantoms of squashed ants and the off-course cricket's dirge, phantom dream trapped in your pillow, the despair of these phantoms squared into bigger phantoms, the phantom of a fat plume and her narcotic intentions, splatter of phantoms against the spray, their shadows above your bed, the phantom of sawdust, the phantom of streaks in the window, phantom of that recollection, Aragon's abstract phantom, phantom sister, why hast thou split into a cavalcade of phantoms? For thou ist purest idiom in my arsenal, phantom, clotting history with conspiracy, tattered or sentient phantom, revenge the phantom of insistence living there, and again in the kitchen, the master phantom and the semantic root, the body's fleshy ghost. The animal permeates the maze outside Trump's wall, a whimper, the mule of the lamb, the imprint of assimilation, like our sweatshirts bearing the logo of our brand class aspiration. The animal burrows, the animal intercepts or plunders, so walls go deep into hell and out and up and down until our throats are dusty with the sand from the walls. I knew a girl that thought to prevent birds' migration, the wall should reach into the sky, restrict the satellites, make the wall into space. With labor, the state redacts from the list of sentience. Local walls constructed by the formal middle class who will know how to make walls around themselves from the wall-making class they took on their phones after the great obsolescence. That'll happen, you know, all war, and grace one day. You're a special animal in the day's rainbow. The next you're a cog in the perimeter, and the next you're stacking bricks imprinted with the Confederate flag, just like your favorite media construct always wanted for you and your helpmates. Why can't you say it? Why can't you release yourself into it? Why won't you open yourself to the wound? Because imagine it's like a rose, a blossom of scarred red tissue, not beautiful, but arresting layers and layers of lesions, layered over with more scar, then more wound over it, and the edges are brittle from years and years of wounding. Can you see it? Red, white, purple, orange, yellow, milk, tears, blue, black. The colors of everywhere. So why can't we just let ourselves circle the wound? All of us circle it with balms and prayer, with linked hands around it. A common song, Esperanto, for instance, the resurgence of Babel, but as one braided bellow like the rope that leads to heaven, exciting the wound, which could vibrate and diminish into lesser scar, a release like opening a fist of morning glory, but of broken skin like a giant fractal spreading across the ice. It would be the end of one era, the beginning of another, like the end of money or the end of time, except more difficult, some might say, impossible, except we would do it perhaps even televised, no commercial breaks. We are taking off the masks, and once they're off, and after that, we'll be in the chairs we dreamt of when we thought about this insurrection. The chair might have been your aunt's or your father's, and we apologize for the disruption of lineage, of power. But from where I sit, I see the seas are a looking glass, through which I find my sisters and my brothers, and their force is ceaseless and filled with light. You go first, then I'll follow. You say it, and I'll repeat it, and you will repeat it, and yours and mine and ours will repeat it, and it'll become the human drone over the world that trembles out the clouds, tumbles them to wash over the cities, wash out our mouths, the consonants draining out into the sewers of our historical consciousness, and the new city rises from the foam of what was the letters are shaped like this. Isn't progress such a chore when it's for the other tribe, sisters and brothers? Progress is also the sledgehammer for all monolith work, one brick at a time. How shall we remind the mathematicians, Virginia, the politicians and the statisticians and the tax-exempt megachurch man and the house flipper and the executive garbage who hiked up the cost of Daraprim and EpiPen and the complicit Ponzi scheme of lobbyists and the propagandists and the Democrat corporate shills and the patriarchal misogynist statesmen? How shall we reiterate that want is a drug, is a conduit, and capital is the rabies impulse, is the mechanism, nationalism, the mask, the matrix is us, sheeple. And so we should capture the mic post-haste, tired of getting jostled on currents dismissed by the judges, made into sex objects, unwillingly reduced into effigy, or dismembered on borders and raised by the American appetite for Sinaloan meth in tiny baggies with skulls on them, each skull a human head tossed to the furrowed canals, edging our borders lined with the bodies of journalists and mayors, a magical realism not seen in your feed. Will someone listen? And if so, how will there be reparation? Will it be animal, mineral, or vegetable? Will it have symbolic heft and flavor, or will it be forcibly removed? Will the Neros hear from their driverless chariots with seats that lean back into giant palanquins, shouldered into the sublime like a condo on Mars by rows and rows of bodies, not just brown, but all our bodies consumed by mythologies of difference, of disruption? Will they listen with respect with the Republic? How will they feel when it's explained and it's not feel-good ribbon business, but just bodies, like chattel and pens, because of the venerated cannibal factory feeding infinite and wanton wants, the pliancy of adolescence, bones, sugar, fecal matter, silicone, gristle, even cells broken down into individual patents, the factory releasing only one xenotype at a time, free with purchase of 1 million impulses? Shall we write it in blood? Shall it be inscribed in the annals of art and history in a wrestle pose? How do we transform their powers? Do we break them apart and bury them, set them on the shelf? Do we push them out on the ice floe or take away their scepters? Can we disrupt it with our word parades? Do we extend ourselves into walls again? Do we let them in on the plot, or do we burn them? Thank you.